my wife, my partner of over a decade, invited another man into the sanctuary of our home while I was out grinding away trying to provide for us. I played it cool. I smiled. I didn't scream or throw things or break down. No, I had a different response. I made a plan. And let me just say, what unfolded afterward turned her world upside down, and not in a good way. She'll think twice before underestimating me again. I'm a 34-year-old guy. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be one of those people spilling their life out online at 2 in the morning, eyes sore from staring at a glowing screen, heart heavy with betrayal. Yet here I am, typing away in the dead of night. My therapist, God bless her patient soul, says journaling or storytelling might help me process what I've been through. No, he'll think I've been too aspirational of life. It might give me permission just to agree with a few perfect friends, so this is part therapy, part warning to anyone else who might be walking blindly into the kind of storm I barely escaped from. Let me set the stage. I was married, past tense, to Sarah. She's 32. We shared a life for over 7 years as husband and wife, but our story stretches back 10 years in total. We met during my junior year of college in the most stereotypical rom-com way imaginable. She literally collided with me in a crowded campus coffee shop. Her latte exploded across my lap and ruined my programming textbook, and somehow, I ended up apologizing to her. I should have known then I was being played from the start. But she smiled, laughed nervously, and my brain short-circuited. Sarah was the kind of girl people stared at. Long, wavy brown hair that always looked freshly styled, piercing green eyes that sparkled even when she was annoyed, and a wardrobe straight out of a curated Instagram feed. Every time she walked into a room, heads turned. When I first brought her back to my apartment, my roommate's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. "Dude, how did you land her?" he asked, more stunned than jealous. Back then, it felt like a compliment. Now it feels more like foreshadowing. Me? I've always been straightforward. I grew up in a working-class family. My dad was a mechanic, who taught me the value of getting my hands dirty and never expecting handouts. I paid my way through college doing construction jobs during summer breaks, hauling lumber, pouring concrete, working 12-hour shifts while my peers were off doing internships in air-conditioned offices. It was brutal, but it shaped me, and yeah, I'd gained some serious muscle from it too. I'm 6'2", weigh around 210 pounds, and I've kept up with fitness ever since. Even during exam seasons, I carved out time for the gym. Not to flex, but I bench 275 for reps and can pull 405 on a deadlift. For me, discipline and self-care go hand in hand. After graduation, I broke into the cybersecurity field, started at entry level, clawed my way up, and eventually became a senior network security specialist for a fintech company. I'm not a millionaire, but I earn more than enough to afford a comfortable lifestyle. We bought a cozy 3-bedroom house in a decent suburb. I even treated myself to a Dodge Charger, my dream car. Sarah hated it, saying it was too loud and aggressive. Meanwhile, she'd drop hundreds on clothes from Lululemon and Target like it was her full-time job. I didn't complain. I believed we were a team. The first few years of marriage were like a highlight reel. We traveled to Europe, posted pictures on the beach, and smiled in every photo. Friends would tell us we looked like the perfect couple. Behind closed doors, things were mostly good, at least at first. Sarah worked as an admin at a dental clinic. Her income was modest, especially compared to what I brought in after my last 2 raises, but I didn't care. I never measured love in dollars. I thought we supported each other in different but equal ways. Somewhere around year 4, things started to shift. It wasn't sudden. Just little things, small enough to ignore if you weren't paying close attention. Sarah fell headfirst into social media, Instagram, TikTok. She was obsessed. Her feed filled up with empowerment influencers preaching about self-worth, emotional labor, and how women shouldn't settle for less. Next thing I knew, everything I did or didn't do became some sort of passive slight. If I didn't notice the new throw pillows, I was emotionally neglectful. Missed her new haircut? I was disconnected from her emotional landscape. Meanwhile, I was putting in 50, 60-hour work weeks, often fielding crisis calls at 3:00 a.m. whenever some hacker tried breaching our systems. I still managed to work out 4 times a week, mowed the lawn, did the landscaping, took her car in for oil changes, and fixed every broken doorknob or appliance around the house. But heaven forbid I missed one of her texts while she was out partying with her girlfriends. Ah, yes, the friends. When we first met, Sarah had a circle of college buddies. Chill, smart, grounded women with actual careers and goals. Over time, they disappeared. In their place came a parade of single, Instagram-obsessed gym junkies from her workout classes. These women spent half their lives criticizing men and the other half telling each other they deserved a king, with zero accountability on their end. The worst offender was Jessica, twice divorced by age 30, constantly whispering poison in Sarah's ear. You deserve more. He's lucky to have you. You shouldn't have to compromise. Every time I walked into a room where they were gathered, it was like I'd farted in church. The judgment was thick, unspoken, but loud as hell. Apparently, being a dependable man with a stable career and no criminal record is the new boring. The signs were right in front of me, but I chose not to see them. Sarah started going out more. First it was girls' night on Thursdays, then Saturdays, then random Tuesdays. She'd come back late, 1:00 a.m., sometimes later. If I texted to check if she was safe, I was controlling. She started dressing differently, shorter skirts, tighter tops, more makeup, even wore full glam to run errands. Our sex life, once lively and spontaneous, turned into a chore for her, from multiple times a week to maybe once every couple of weeks, each time framed as if I were imposing on her peace. I'm tired. I'm bloated. I have to be up early. But she had no problem springing out of bed for her 6:00 a.m. spin class. Still, I tried. I scheduled romantic date nights. She bailed. Bought her thoughtful gifts. She returned them, and never told me. I sat through hours of her complaining about petty office drama, and she couldn't give me 5 uninterrupted minutes when I vented about a server meltdown or workplace politics. Every interaction became one-sided. I was just a background character in the Sarah show. And like a fool, I kept trying to be the hero of a story I didn't realize had already turned into a tragedy. Everything began unraveling, for real, just 2 months ago. That's when the dam finally burst, and all the quiet frustrations, buried red flags and ignored warnings, came crashing down. It was a Thursday, like many other Thursdays that had quietly chipped away at our marriage, but this one? It marked the end of an illusion I had clung to for far too long. I had just wrapped up an absolutely punishing 14-hour workday. A hacker, one of those arrogant amateur types who thinks they're the next great cybercriminal, had uncovered a zero-day exploit in our company's firewall. My team and I had been pulled into emergency mode, scrambling non-stop to contain the threat, patch the vulnerability, and ensure no sensitive client information had been compromised. It was the kind of high-pressure, no-room-for-error chaos that burns out lesser teams. My eyes felt like sandpaper after staring at code and network logs for hours, and my entire body ached from the stress. My shoulders were locked up like concrete. A dull, unrelenting headache pounded at the base of my skull. All I wanted in that moment was the comfort of home, some food, maybe a few minutes to decompress, and then just pass out. At around 8:00 p.m., I sent Sarah a text, letting her know I was finally on my way back. I didn't expect a reply. Lately, she barely responded, unless it was to criticize or complain. And it was Thursday, her sacred girls' night. I figured she was probably out, sipping overpriced cocktails with Jessica and the rest of her man-bashing crew, posting motivational quotes about self-love and queen energy on Instagram, while they took turns tearing down their partners. Daytime stumbled on Sarah, a sigh as she passed in the park. I got home just before 9:00 p.m., dropped my keys on the console, and made a beeline for the fridge. I reheated some leftover chicken and rice, too tired to bother plating it properly, and ate it while leaning against the kitchen counter. After that, I collapsed onto the couch, still in my work clothes, and barely remember closing my eyes before everything faded to black. What snapped me out of that exhausted haze was the sound of the front door slamming open, hard, and a burst of stomping footsteps echoing down the hallway. The digital clock on the entertainment center blinked 11:30 p.m. Sarah stormed into the living room like a hurricane, in heels. "Really, Jake, seriously, are you kidding me right now?" she barked as she hurled her designer purse onto the coffee table. The force knocked over my half-full water glass, sending it tumbling to the carpet. I blinked, confused and groggy, and fumbled for my phone. 3 messages from her lit up the screen, all sent within the last 45 minutes. The final one read, "Hello? Are you ignoring me on purpose?" Still rubbing the fatigue from my eyes, I looked up and said, "Sorry, I passed out the second I sat down. I've been up since 4:00. I am dealing with that breach I told you about." She rolled her eyes with the kind of theatrical force that could power a wind turbine. "Of course, work always comes first with you. Heaven forbid you check your phone when your wife needs you." I inhaled deeply, trying to center myself, fighting the instinct to snap back. "What happened? Is something wrong?" Her hands flew into the air. "Yes, something's wrong. My car's making that stupid noise again and Jessica had to drive me home. I texted you to come pick me up, but I guess that was just too much to ask. I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach, not because of the car, but because of the hypocrisy. You mean the car I asked you to take to the shop 3 days ago? The one I scheduled an appointment for, and you canceled because you didn't have time? She scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. Oh my God, Jake, this isn't just about the stupid car. I'll check it out tomorrow, I said calmly. Right now, I'm running on fumes. Can we handle this in the morning? That's when she exploded. You're tired? You're tired? She shrieked. Do you even understand how draining it is to be married to someone who's never emotionally present, who treats work like his real relationship, and treats me like a background prop in his life? I stood up then, the weariness giving way to rising tension. Sarah, I just spent the entire day trying to stop a cyber attack that could have cost my company millions. I'm sorry I didn't drop everything to come pick you up after you skipped a mechanic appointment I arranged to fix this very issue. She stepped closer, eyes blazing. This isn't about a damn car, Jake, it's about you. You've mentally checked out of this marriage. You're not here anymore. I almost laughed at the absurdity. I've checked out, I shot back. This from the woman who's home 2 nights a week at best, who spends more time curating Instagram stories than having actual conversations, who treats her husband like an accessory? Her voice dropped a register, cold and hard. Well, maybe if you were actually meeting my needs, I wouldn't have to spend so much time away. I froze, my stomach twisted. Meeting your needs, I repeated. She crossed her arms and added, there are plenty of men out there who'd give me the attention I deserve, men who wouldn't take someone like me for granted. It felt like a gut punch, not just because of the words, but because of the clarity in her tone. This wasn't just an emotional outburst, she meant it. We'd argued before, many times in fact, but this was different. This wasn't about petty household chores or scheduling conflicts. This was about who we had become, or rather, who we had always been when the masks finally slipped. I looked at her standing there in full makeup, designer leggings, and a smug expression that said she was ready for a fight she thought she'd win. But something inside me broke loose, and I felt nothing. No more desire to keep the peace, no more guilt, just silence and clarity. You know what? I said, voice calm and almost too quiet. I don't care about those other men. Maybe you should go test your theory, see how many of them are willing to deal with your constant entitlement. Her face twitched, caught off guard. She was expecting groveling, regret, pleading. But I didn't budge. I stared her down, arms at my sides, completely still. You think I'm entitled? She snapped. I didn't flinch, just kept eye contact. She crossed her arms again, defensive now. Maybe if you did care, you'd start acting like a husband instead of a coworker I live with. Maybe you'd be the man I thought I married. And there it was, the last card in her deck. Emasculation. A subtle jab at my masculinity, designed to provoke. But I'd been in too many high-stakes negotiations to fall for that trick. I didn't respond. I just let the silence do the talking. 6 months ago, that emotional manipulation might have worked on me. It had worked countless times before. Her voice would tremble. She'd tossed out accusations about how little I cared, and I'd cave. Every single time, but not this night. Something fundamental had changed in me. For the first time in years, I could see things for what they truly were. The fog was gone. I looked at her. Not with love or frustration, but with startling clarity. She stood in front of me, her posture defiant, her arms crossed like she was still in control. But I really saw her now. The thick layer of foundation, too much for just a casual dinner out with friends. The dress, tight-fitting and revealing, far more than she ever wore for our date nights. Her hair was styled in perfect loose curls, the kind that took at least an hour to pull off. And there was a fragrance lingering in the air, something floral and sharp that I didn't recognize. It wasn't the scent she'd worn for most of our marriage. Individually, none of these details meant much, but together they painted a picture I hadn't wanted to see before. And instead of feeling the usual cocktail of pain, frustration, and anger, something else washed over me. Relief. Pure, quiet, liberating relief. It was like I'd been walking around with a 200-pound pack on my back, and I had finally dropped it. I looked her straight in the eye. You know what, Sarah? I said, my tone calm, even casual. You're absolutely right. That gave her pause. She blinked, thrown by the lack of heat in my voice. I don't care anymore, I continued. I've spent years caring, Years working my ass off to provide for us, trying to make you happy, sacrificing my time, energy, and sanity just to see you smile. But it was never enough. Nothing I ever did was enough. Her mouth opened slightly, unsure whether to interrupt or let me keep talking. I'm saying I'm done, I concluded, voice low but firm. I reached over to the kitchen counter and picked up my keys. Her eyes followed my hand, and I saw the shift in her demeanor, confusion morphing into panic. This wasn't how these arguments usually went. I was supposed to beg. I was supposed to promise to change, to fight for us. You're just going to leave? She asked, her voice tightening. Just like that? Yes, Sarah, I replied, slipping on my jacket. Just like that. I walked toward the door, calm and unshaken. She trailed behind me, trying to keep up emotionally. Where are you even going to go? I turned one last time, meeting her eyes without hesitation. That's no longer your concern. There were no slammed doors, no dramatic shouting, no tears. I simply walked out, got into my Dodge Charger, the one purchase she'd constantly ridiculed as childish, and drove off. As I cruised through the dark, familiar streets of our neighborhood, then merged onto the highway, I felt something close to peace for the first time in months. Maybe even years. I never imagined my marriage would end this way. Hell, I hadn't imagined it ending at all. But the strange thing was, once it started unraveling, it all felt inevitable. Like we'd been hurtling toward this moment in slow motion, and I had just finally braced for the impact. I checked into a modest hotel near my office. Nothing luxurious, just clean linens and quiet walls. I anticipated a sleepless night. I figured my mind would race, replaying the fight, second-guessing everything I said. But I slept like a rock, better than I had in months. No stress, no cold shoulder on the other side of the bed, no unspoken resentments humming beneath the surface. The next day was oddly productive. At work, I tackled a couple of complex cybersecurity issues that had been nagging at me for weeks. Even had time to hit the hotel gym over my lunch break. My coworkers noticed. You seem more focused today, one of them said. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Meanwhile, Sarah was blowing up my phone, message after message. Are you seriously not coming home? You're overreacting. This is ridiculous. Call me. And eventually the passive-aggressive cherry on top. Fine, be that way. I don't care. Classic manipulation, hot and cold, push and pull. But I didn't take the bait this time. I didn't respond. I didn't even open half of them. I was done playing emotional tug-of-war. That evening I wasn't quite ready to go back to my empty hotel room, so I drove to a nearby sports bar where a bunch of us from IT occasionally grabbed dinner after hours. It wasn't anything special, burgers, fries, and way too many TVs playing games I didn't care about. But it was comfortable, familiar. I sat at the bar, away from the dining area, trying to enjoy my meal in peace. Halfway through my burger, someone sat 2 stools over. I caught the motion in the corner of my eye and turned slightly. He looked familiar. Took me a second to place him. He ordered a soda, glanced my way again, and then did a double take. You're Sarah's husband, right? My posture straightened instinctively. Who's asking? Jason, he said, offering a hesitant smile. I work over at CrossFit Elevation. And there it was. The recognition hit. One of the trainers at Sarah's ridiculously overpriced gym, the place that drained $200, 0 cents a month from our bank account, because it was the only place she claimed made her feel empowered. What about it? I kept my voice steady, trying not to reveal the storm now brewing behind my eyes. Jason shifted 1 stool closer, his voice dropping. Look, man, I've seen you before, dropping her off, picking her up. You seem like a solid guy, so I figured you should know. I set down my water glass, grip tightening slightly. I'm listening. She's been telling people she's planning to leave you, he said quietly. Been saying you're emotionally distant, that you don't support her, that you couldn't handle a strong, independent woman. My stomach turned, but I gave nothing away. When did she start saying this? Jason didn't hesitate. 3 months ago, right around the time she started doing private sessions with Brad. Brad? Of course. The head trainer. Tall, muscular, charming. The guy every woman in that gym seemed to idolize, and judging by Jason's expression, the guy who'd made a habit of preying on married women. They've been seeing each other outside of the gym, Jason added. Like, late-night hangouts, not just workouts. You get what I'm saying. The missing puzzle pieces fell into place. The new lingerie I'd never seen her wear, the sudden obsession with early morning gym sessions, the coldness, the distance. Why are you telling me this? I asked, keeping my voice even. Jason shrugged. a mixture of guilt and indignation on his face. Brad did the same thing to my sister. Got into her head, ruined her marriage, then dumped her for someone else a few weeks later. It's his thing. He targets married women, gets them to cheat, then tosses them aside. I figured, I don't know, you deserved a heads up. I nodded slowly, processing the full weight of it. I appreciate it. I pulled a 20 from my wallet and set it on the bar to cover my tab. Really, I said again, locking eyes with him. Thanks. Jason nodded once. No problem, man. And, she doesn't know I'm telling you this, Jason added quietly, his eyes darting toward the bartender who wasn't paying us any attention. I'd appreciate it if you kept it that way. I really need this job, man. I nodded slowly, my jaw clenched. This conversation never happened. As I left the bar and headed back to my hotel, the city lights blurred in my peripheral vision. One might expect that I'd be a mess of emotions. Rage boiling in my veins, betrayal cutting into every thought like a serrated blade. But oddly, my mind was eerily calm. I should have felt crushed, furious, like my world was collapsing, and yes, there was anger. Yes, I felt betrayed, but more than anything else, I felt something surprisingly validating. Vindication. All those nagging suspicions, all those seemingly harmless inconsistencies I had brushed aside, the unexplained late nights, the sudden coldness, the gaslighting, it all made perfect sense now. The pieces fell into place, forming an ugly picture I could no longer ignore. Yet what surprised me most was the absence of jealousy. I didn't care that she'd slept with someone else. Not really. What pierced me to the core was the lie, the deception, the months of being manipulated into thinking I was the problem, that I wasn't enough, that somehow her betrayal was my fault. But buried beneath all that pain, a new emotion began to surface, sharp and focused, determination. I wasn't going to let myself be the victim in this narrative. I'd been played long enough. It was time I took back control. I didn't confront Sarah right away. That would have been amateur hour. No, I went strategic, tactical, the way I would if I were tracking a threat inside a compromised system. First, I crafted a message, just vague enough to keep her calm, but distant enough to buy time. Need more time to think. Staying with a friend for a while. Her response came minutes later and told me everything I needed to know. Whatever. Take all the time you need. No concern. No, are you okay? Not even a shallow, I miss you, just an annoyance. Irritation that her control over me had been interrupted. That sealed it. Back at the hotel, I opened my laptop and got to work. Cybersecurity is my profession. I know how to find data that most people don't even realize they're exposing, but in this case, I didn't even need to dig that deep. Sarah and I had a shared cloud account, used mostly for family photos and household documents. She had never thought to disable the automatic photo backup from her phone. It was still linked, and what did I find there? It stopped me cold. Dozens of selfies she'd never sent me, taken in front of mirrors at the gym, in outfits that barely qualified as clothing. Poses meant for someone else's eyes, not mine. Some of the photos were snapped in unfamiliar settings, hotel rooms from the looks of the decor, places I'd never seen, places she'd never mentioned. From there, I pivoted to her phone account. Something she forgot I managed and paid for. On our family plan, I pulled up the call logs, dozens upon dozens of calls to a number I didn't recognize. Most of them lined up perfectly with her workout sessions or times I was stuck at work. Each call was long, 20, 30, sometimes even 45 minutes. But the true motherlode was the cloud backup. Sarah wasn't nearly tech-savvy enough to know that deleted text messages were often stored in her phone backups, and if you knew where to look, you could retrieve them. I most certainly knew where to look. It didn't take long to find the evidence. Hundreds of messages, stretching back 4 months between her and the man himself. Brad. The trainer. The predator. Some of them were laughable in how blatant they were. Sarah. He has no idea. Thinks I'm at spin class, lol. Brad. His loss. When you coming over today? Sarah. As soon as he leaves for work. Can stay till 3 this time. Sarah. Told him I'm going to a conference next weekend. Brad. Perfect. Got the cabin booked. Bring that black thing I like. And more. Sarah. He asked why I was being distant. Almost felt bad for a second. Brad. Don't. He ain't giving you what you need. I am. Sarah. When should I do it? Brad. Still think you should wait till bonus season. Smart girl, get that money. Then drop the bomb. There were more, much more, explicit ones. Messages that made it very clear this wasn't just a fling. This was coordinated deception, strategic infidelity. I wasn't just being betrayed. I was being played, ridiculed, used. But this wasn't just about anger anymore. It was about setting the record straight and protecting myself. I didn't just want revenge, I wanted justice. Next, I turned to our financials. As the primary earner, I'd been funneling my paychecks into our shared account for years. Sarah's income from her part-time dental office job went almost entirely to her own luxuries, her monthly CrossFit membership, spa visits, and never-ending online shopping sprees. What I uncovered was infuriating. Over $500, 0 cents a month, spent on hotel stays, upscale dinners, and Amazon packages I never saw. All of it leading straight back to Brad. My money, spent to bankroll her affair. Every steak he ate, every bottle of wine he popped, every cabana weekend. It was all on my dime. So, I made a call. To my friend Mark. We'd met in college. He was now one of the most respected divorce attorneys in the city. After I explained everything, he was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Get ready, this is going to get ugly, but I'll make sure you come out on top." Mark gave me a list. Step 1, document everything, messages, photos, financial records, timelines. Step 2, set up cameras in the house. Not in bedrooms or bathrooms, that's illegal. But Colorado is a one-party consent state. As long as I'm involved in the household, I can record common areas. If she brings him over, or even mentions the affair while inside, you'll have solid leverage, Mark said. So I did just that. Picked up discrete, high-resolution cameras and installed them strategically. Living room, kitchen, hallway. I made the installations during a quick visit home to grab some clothes while Sarah was conveniently at yoga. Brad's apartment, according to a text she'd sent Jessica. I also safeguarded myself financially. I moved a significant chunk of our savings into a separate account under my name. Not everything, that would raise red flags, but just enough to protect myself from any sudden emergency withdrawals. Mark had warned me, don't touch the joint account for non-essentials. Keep paying the bills, keep things looking normal. Don't give her any ammunition to paint me as vindictive. For 2 weeks, I played the part. I told Sarah I needed more time to process. I was trying to work through my feelings. She seemed relieved, detached, as if she'd expected me to be out of her way long enough for Brad to slide in permanently. Meanwhile, I was transforming, hitting the gym with renewed discipline, up at 5 o'clock a.m. daily, pushing myself harder than ever before. My bench press went up by 15 pounds in 2 weeks. I stopped eating junk, cut out sugar, and focused on high-protein meals. My body changed, but more importantly, so did my mindset. I wasn't broken. I was getting ready. Over the next 2 weeks, I pushed myself harder than ever, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I dropped my body fat down to 12%, not because I was chasing aesthetics or trying to prove something to anyone else. No, this was about me, about becoming strong enough, inside and out, to face what was coming. My focus sharpened, my resolve hardened. On the 15th day, after countless hours of digital investigation, emotional preparation, and legal planning, I sent Sarah a short but deliberate text. "Coming home tomorrow. We need to talk." Her response popped up almost instantly. "Yes, we do. I have something to tell you, too." Of course she did. That night I barely slept. Not out of anxiety, there was none of that anymore, but out of anticipation. It was the kind of sleeplessness you get before a big game or a final showdown. After feeling powerless for so long, I finally felt like I was in the driver's seat again. I had the truth, the evidence, and a rock-solid plan. That morning I reviewed everything one last time with Mark, my divorce attorney and longtime friend. We walked through possible scenarios, every dodge or denial Sarah might attempt, every trap she might try to set. "Just remember," Mark said, tapping the table for emphasis, "she doesn't know what you know. That's your edge. Let her talk herself into a corner. Don't lead, just listen." I nodded. I was ready. At exactly 6:00 p.m., I pulled into the driveway of the house I had paid for, maintained, and defended. Alone, for all intents and purposes. Sarah's car was there, but so was another one, a silver SUV I didn't recognize. That was unexpected. I entered the house and found Sarah seated at the kitchen table, sipping white wine alongside Jessica, her ever-toxic best friend and unofficial hype woman. Both of them looked up as I walked in, and the air instantly thickened. Tension saturated the space. "Jake," Sarah began, her tone rehearsed, her eyes glistening with manufactured emotion. "I'm glad you're here." She gestured to Jessica. "I asked her to be here for moral support, for both of us." Jessica gave me a thin, smug smile. "Hi, Jake." My disenchanted eyes said it all out loud. And it isn't polite. No sympathy in my voice. I took the phone down on the table, facing me, and kept my jacket on. I didn't sit. I remained standing. A subtle power move. I had no interest in pretending this was a balanced conversation. "You said we needed to talk," I said flatly. Sarah glanced at Jessica, then back at me, with what she probably thought was a heartfelt expression. "Jake, I've been doing a lot of thinking while you've been gone." I said nothing, just let her speak. She launched into a monologue about soul-searching, about how people grow apart, how our goals no longer aligned. She sprinkled in vague reflections about her own growth and used phrases like deserving happiness and needing to rediscover herself. It was a carefully crafted victim narrative, light on specifics and heavy on buzzwords. Jessica nodded along like an understudy, murmuring agreement every few sentences. Not once did Sarah mention betrayal. Not once did she own her choices. Instead, the blame shifted entirely to me. I had failed her. I had been emotionally unavailable. I'd prioritized my career. I didn't check in enough. I wasn't attentive. It was all designed to sound thoughtful, reflective, but I heard the message clearly. None of this was her fault. When she finally ran out of steam, she looked at me expectantly, waiting for the fight, or maybe a plea, maybe a breakdown. She wanted something dramatic. She needed it. I gave her none of it. Instead, I smiled, calm, collected. "Are you finished?" I asked. She blinked, caught off guard. Yes," she said slowly. "I think we should separate, Jake. It's for the best." "I agree completely," I replied, nodding. "But before we go any further, I think there's something you should know." I reached down and tapped my phone, unlocking it and swiping to a folder marked documentation. "I know about Brad." Her face went pale instantly, like someone had flipped a switch and drained every drop of color. Jessica's eyes widened in disbelief. "Waste. What did?" Sarah stammered. I set the phone on the table, screen up, displaying a string of damning text messages. "Your CrossFit instructor," I said evenly. "The one you've been sleeping with for 4 months. The one you've spent thousands of dollars on. The one you were with last weekend when you told me you were at a work conference." Jessica jumped in quickly, defensive. "You've been spying on her? Going through her phone? That's abuse, Jake. You can't just—" I turned to her, voice still calm. "I didn't go through her phone. These are from our shared cloud account. The one I pay for, the one that automatically backs up her phone's content, the one she never disconnected." Jessica fell silent. Sarah looked like she was about to crumble. Then, as expected, the tears came. She tried a different tactic. "It's not what you think," she whispered. He took advantage of me. I was lonely, Jake. You were never there. You were always working. And I—" "Save it," I cut in. Still calm, still steady. "I've already spoken to Mark Johnson. The divorce paperwork is in motion. I know about the hotel stays, the dinners, the fake conferences. I know about the plan to wait until my bonus cleared before you left." The shift in her demeanor was instantaneous. The tears stopped. Her posture straightened. The softness vanished. "Oh, you think you're clever?" she snapped, venom in her voice. "Fine. I was trying to be civil about this, but if you want a war, I'll give you one. I'll bleed you dry. Alimony, the house, your precious car. By the time I'm finished, you'll be in a shoebox apartment eating instant noodles." I smiled again, because that was the moment I had been waiting for. "You might want to reconsider that strategy," I said, and pressed a button on my phone. The television in the living room flicked on. I had synced it via Bluetooth earlier. It played a clip from the security footage I had captured 3 nights earlier. Brad and Sarah, on our couch, kissing, laughing. And then came her voice, clear as crystal. "Once the divorce is final, we'll sell this place and get something better. Jake'll pay for it all. His fault for being such a pushover all these years." Brad's chuckle followed. "He has no idea what's coming, does he? Poor bastard." Silence fell over the room. Sarah turned pale again. Jessica looked like she might faint. "I've got hours of this," I said quietly. "You brought another man into the home I paid for. You made plans to strip me of everything. You laughed about it." "You can't record me without my consent," Sarah shouted, panicked now. "That's illegal." "Actually," I replied coolly, "Colorado is a one-party consent state, and those recordings were made in common areas of the home I own and live in. perfectly legal. Mark had one last message before I left that evening. Tell her I said hi. I'd be delighted to present all this to the judge, especially if she decides to play dirty. His tone was cool, confident. Mark lived for situations like this where the facts were overwhelming and justice was practically guaranteed. Back in the house, after the video played and the truth lay bare, Jessica stood up abruptly. I should go, she stammered, her voice losing all its earlier edge. This is clearly between you two. Funny how the moral support evaporated the moment things got real. She didn't wait for a response, didn't try to console Sarah, didn't even offer a parting shot at me. She simply grabbed her designer handbag and scurried out like a rat abandoning a sinking ship. Once the front door shut behind her, Sarah's mask dropped completely. The wide eyes, the trembling lip, the tears. All gone. What replaced them was cold, flat calculation. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice emotionless. "A clean break," I replied without hesitation. "You sign the divorce agreement that Mark drafted. You take your personal items, load them into your car, and you leave." She narrowed her eyes. "I keep the house, my retirement accounts, and everything else. No alimony, no court battle, just a clean split and we never speak again. And if I don't agree? Then we go the hard route, we take it to court. I bring every bit of evidence I've collected, your texts, the cloud backups, the footage of you and Brad in our home, and the financial records showing how you used joint marital assets to fund your affair." She remained silent for a long moment. I could see the gears turning. She wasn't sentimental anymore. She was strategic, weighing her chances, calculating the damage. Eventually, she tried a last-ditch tactic. She stood, walked toward me slowly. The bitterness in her face faded, replaced by something softer, vulnerable. She laid a hand gently on my chest and looked up at me with those green eyes that used to reduce me to putty. "Jake, baby," she said softly. "We can fix this. Please, I made a mistake, Brad. He meant nothing. It was just physical. I was lonely. But I still love you. We can try again, go to counseling, start fresh." I looked down at her hand, then carefully lifted it off my chest. "Save it, Sarah," I said, my tone flat. "That might have worked on the old me, the guy who'd do anything to make you happy, but that guy? He's gone." Her eyes hardened instantly. The mask dropped once again. "Fine," she snapped. "I'll sign your stupid papers, but only because it's not worth my time to fight you. I've got better things to do with my life than drag out a divorce with someone I don't even love anymore." I nodded. "Mark will be in touch tomorrow." I turned to leave, already planning to head back to my hotel, but just as I reached the doorway, her voice rang out, laced with venom. "He's better, you know, Brad, in every way that matters." I stopped, turned slowly and looked at her, not with anger or hatred, but genuine pity. "I'm sure you think so," I said softly, "for now. Good luck, Sarah. You're going to need it." 2 days later, she signed the divorce papers without protest. Mark called me with a hint of disbelief in his voice. That was the cleanest split I've ever handled. No rebuttals, no revisions. She folded completely. I let her keep her car and the items she came with. She didn't fight me on the house or my retirement savings. She knew she didn't have a leg to stand on. When the day came for her to move out, I didn't even show up. I sent a friend, one who knew the situation, to supervise. Later, he told me, Brad came with his truck, looking cocky, full of smug satisfaction as he helped her pack. I didn't care. I was nowhere near them. That day, I was miles away, hiking up in the mountains, breathing fresh pine air, feeling the weight of years slide off my shoulders. It was done. I was free. A month later, I was at my new gym, nowhere near CrossFit elevation, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. "Jake, it's me. Can we talk? Please." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won for just a second. I replied with a single word. The response came within seconds. Brad dumped me, said I was too much drama. I lost everything, my job, my place, my parents won't help, I don't know where to go. Can we just talk? It was the kind of message that once would have sent my heart racing, but now, it barely registered. Turns out Brad had already moved on. His new obsession was a 28-year-old yoga instructor with a loaded husband. Classic predator behavior. Sarah, meanwhile, had followed his advice and quit her dental office job to focus on fitness. Now she had no income, no partner, and no allies. Her apartment lease was in her name only, one she couldn't afford. Brad had promised to move in, then ghosted her. Even her inner circle, Jessica included, had abandoned her. Apparently, being the queen bee only worked when you had a hive to rule. I didn't respond to her text. I blocked the number, finished my workout, and walked out without looking back. But that wasn't the end. A week later, there was a knock at my front door. I opened it to find Sarah standing there. Only it wasn't the woman I had married. This was a ghost. Her once styled hair was frizzy and unkempt. Her designer outfits were replaced by ill-fitting sweatpants and a hoodie that had seen better days. Her eyes, once so sharp and calculating, were red and swollen, her mascara smudged. "Jake, please," she whispered. "I messed up. I threw away everything. You, our home, our life, for nothing." I leaned on the doorframe. "What do you want, Sarah?" She looked up, eyes pleading. "Another chance? Anything. I'll do whatever you want. Counseling, therapy, anything. I miss you. I miss our life. I miss us." I watched her for a long moment. Somewhere deep down, a flicker of sympathy stirred, but it faded almost immediately. "No," I said quietly but firmly. "That life is gone. You killed it. I've moved on, and you need to do the same." Tears welled up again. "But I have nowhere to go. My landlord is evicting me. My credit's wrecked. My parents said I can come back, but only if I move back to Ohio. Please, Jake, I'm begging you." I sighed. Not because I was tempted, but because it all felt so inevitable. "That's not my problem anymore, Sarah. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them." With those words, I closed the front door. Not with rage, not with finality, but with quiet certainty. A soft click, not a slam. Through the side window, I watched her stand there on the porch for several minutes. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed uncontrollably, body heaving with the weight of regret. Eventually, she turned and walked back to her car, wiping her face with trembling hands. She didn't look back. That was the last time I ever saw her. I heard bits and pieces of her aftermath through the grapevine. Mutual friends, former co-workers, and even acquaintances couldn't help but share her downfall. Apparently, she moved back to Ohio with her parents, retreating into the place she swore she'd never return to. She deleted all of her social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all gone, like she was trying to erase her existence here. The woman who once lived to post selfies and motivational quotes was now invisible. It's been 6 months since that final encounter. In that time, my world has changed in the best ways possible. The house is quiet now, filled with a kind of peace I hadn't realized was missing for years. There's no passive-aggressive sighs, no midnight door slams, no cold silences after innocent questions. Just calm, order, sanity. And with all that toxic energy gone, I began to flourish. I got promoted at work, senior manager now. The energy I used to waste worrying about Sarah's moods and games got redirected into solving tough security issues, mentoring new hires, and improving systems. I earned a reputation for being laser-focused and dependable under pressure. It turns out emotional stability is great for productivity. Physically, I'm in the best shape of my life. I kept training, dialed in my diet, and stayed consistent. I feel strong, energized, and more confident than ever. I even started dating again. Not with desperation, but with curiosity. No expectations, no neediness. Just casual conversations with people who enjoy my company and respect my time. Sometimes, late at night, I'll find myself remembering. Not the pain, but the history. 10 years of shared experiences, of trips taken, holidays spent together, small moments that once meant everything. There are memories that can still sting if I let them. You don't give a decade of your life to someone and walk away without a few scars. But mostly, I feel gratitude. Grateful that I uncovered the truth when I did, before marriage became a prison. Grateful that I had the technical skills to find evidence, the legal support of friends like Mark, and the emotional resilience to take decisive action. Grateful that I didn't allow myself to become another cautionary tale, a man drained by a manipulative partner and left paying alimony for the privilege. To any man out there who feels that creeping doubt in his gut, that whisper that something isn't right, listen to it. Trust yourself. Don't dismiss the red flags. Don't let anyone convince you that wanting loyalty and respect makes you controlling or insecure. You have every right to expect honesty in your relationship. I know this post has been a long one, but typing it all out has brought me closure. It's like sealing the final page of a painful chapter and shelving the book for good. If you've read this far, thank you. This is my story. Take what you want from it. Ignore it if you prefer. But know this: standing up for yourself is not weakness. It's survival. It's self-respect. As for updates, yes, there are a few, Turns out Sarah really did move back home. A mutual friend told me she's working a retail job at a mall kiosk now, selling cell phone cases. A far cry from the empowered lifestyle she used to flaunt online. And Brad? He's already found a new target. Or maybe his third. Or 30-30. That yoga instructor who left her husband for him? Dumped 3 months later. Apparently, she didn't like finding texts from other women on his Apple Watch. Poetic Justice. Jessica, the toxic best friend who once called me controlling, actually reached out a month ago. She apologized. Claimed she had no idea how bad things had gotten and that Sarah had lied to her too. I listened. I accepted her apology politely, but I also made it clear we wouldn't be reconnecting. That part of my life is closed. Work has continued to go well. I got a nice bonus for handling a major security breach, and I'm putting part of that money into renovating the house, tearing out the old memories, redecorating, with things that reflect who I am now, not who we were then. It's finally becoming my home, not a monument to a broken relationship. I've taken up rock climbing as a hobby, something new and challenging that pushes me outside my comfort zone. I've met great people through it. People who don't know my history, who doesn't see me as that guy whose wife cheated. Just as me. Dating is still casual. I'm not in a rush. I'm enjoying rediscovering what I like, what I value. I've stopped trying to fit into someone else's mold. I'm building something real, but this time, it starts with me.